A dumb rule got put in place at my school, and it was 100% because of me. Our school had this thing where if you finished a test early, you weren't allowed to read, sleep, draw, or even put your head down. You had to sit quietly and reflect until the period ended. No phones, obviously, just you, a blank desk, and up to 40 minutes of staring into nothing. It was supposed to stop cheating, but really it just turned finishing early into a punishment. So most kids stopped finishing early on purpose, not me. I found a loophole. See, the rule listed everything you couldn't do, but it never said a single word about your hands. So the night before a big exam, I watched a video and taught myself origami. Not little paper footballs, actual origami, cranes and boxes and frogs that jump when you press the back. The next day I finished my test early, pulled out my scratch paper, which was 100% allowed, and quietly folded a paper crane while I reflected. Mr. Dolan glanced up, saw a kid sitting in total silence with his hands busy and his eyes forward, and had absolutely no reason to say anything. I wasn't reading, I wasn't sleeping, I was reflecting with a crane. Within a week, it spread like a disease. Kids started stashing scratch paper specifically for this. Finish your test, fold a frog. By the second week, there were like 8 of us, and the back counter of the classroom slowly filled up with a tiny paper zoo. One kid figured out how to fold a claw that actually snapped shut. Another kid made a paper boat with a working little sail. A girl named Priya got so good she was folding paper roses with layered petals, and people started finishing tests early just to commission one. It got competitive fast. Kids started guarding their best pieces in their backpacks and doing little show and tells at lunch, and somewhere in there, a genuine origami black market formed, where a good snapping claw could get you an entire dessert off somebody's tray. I once traded a folded paper dragon, which took me the entire back half of a history exam, for a full bag of chips and a pudding cup. We had a whole economy, a working currency, built entirely on a loophole, all because a school decided the correct thing to do with a kid who finishes early is force him to sit and stare at a wall. We weren't talking, we weren't cheating, we were silently building an entire ecosystem out of exam scratch paper, and Mr. Dolan genuinely did not know what to do about it, because on paper, no pun intended, we were following every rule he had. Then I got greedy. I made a paper fortune teller, one of those finger ones with the flaps you open and close, and I passed it to the kid next to me who'd also finished. He picked a number, opened a flap, and inside I'd written fake fortunes like, "You will fail this exact test," and "Mr. Dolan is watching you right now." He read that last one, looked up, and laughed out loud in a dead silent testing room. Mr. Dolan's head snapped up like a hawk. He walked over, picked the fortune teller up off the desk, unfolded the whole thing, read every fortune, and then slowly turned and looked at the 12 paper cranes lined up along the back counter like tiny witnesses to a crime. The next morning, there's a fresh laminated sign taped to the front board. During testing, no reading, no sleeping, no drawing, no writing, and no paper folding of any kind. He added a whole new clause for origami to a testing policy, but he didn't stop there. He started handing out scratch paper one single sheet at a time, counted out loud, and collected every sheet at the end of the period so nobody could smuggle any out or hoard it. A kid raised his hand and asked, completely straight-faced, if we were at least allowed to think about folding paper. Mr. Dolan looked at him for a long second and said, and I quote, "Do not test me." So we adapted, obviously. We learned to make shapes using just the top corner of the actual answer sheet, tiny ones. Folded so flat they'd flatten right back out before he collected them, and he'd never know. He never caught that part. To this day, there's a rule on that classroom wall with my name invisibly written all over it. And somewhere out there is a very confused substitute teacher reading a clause about origami and wondering what could have possibly happened.